Mask, there's a lot of disagreement in the scientific literature about how much protection that gives you. So I just don't want people to think that you do the mask to the exclusion of all the other stuff.
Now at 6, Governor DeSantis giving his first formal interview since the pandemic began to our Jim DeFede.
The one-on-one interview is a CBS 4 News exclusive. Good evening, I'm Elliot Rodriguez.
And I'm Lauren Pastrana. Among the topics, the two discussed the coronavirus and the governor's handling of the pandemic.
CBS 4's Jim DeFede joins us now with some of his exclusive sit-down interview with the governor. And Jim, you spoke to the governor for more than an hour.
I did, and we covered a lot of topics, but one of the things I wanted to talk to him was about a moment that has gone viral that in some ways has defined him not in a very positive way. And to remind you, this is a May 20th press conference he had with the vice president. Let's play a little sound from that to remind folks.
You got a lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened.
So now, of course, you know, at that time on May 20th, when he held that, there were 47,000 cases and just over 2,000 deaths. So when I started the interview with him, one of the things I want to do was say, look what's happened since then. So let's play some of that sound. Since you said that basically we had succeeded, an additional 450,000 people have now tested positive and more than 5,000 people have died. What happened?
So we got through the first phase. That was the whole point of the flatten the curve. I never said that we were not going to have to deal with the virus. It wasn't going away. Now, we didn't know when we would have to face any type of surge, but we saw it just like all the other states in our region saw it towards the end of June. But you know what? We were prepared for it. You know, we had the systems in place. We had the resources in place. It's not been easy. Part of it is the testing. I mean, if you look at the amount of testing that's been done, it's pretty frequent. Well, we'll have 100,000 test results in a single day.
Do you think we're doing too much testing?
Well, I think that we should really focus on better turnaround times with the labs for the folks who are symptomatic or in the at-risk groups. What's happening with the asymptomatic is if you test somebody, I can't tell you whether you have live virus because you can test positive. The CDC says you can test positive for 12 weeks now. So when someone comes that's asymptomatic, takes them a week to get the test results. They're not infectious most likely at that point, even if they were infected.
I want to just stay with the idea of the message that you sent on May 20th and whether or not your positive message that we've succeeded in basically gave people the impression that the battle was over, we had won, and that people could go about their lives again, which then also caused the resurgence to happen.
Oh, but that's okay. You know, that's one little clip. But then what about all the actions we were taking during that time? I mean, if I thought it was over, I wouldn't have set up all the COVID-only nursing facilities. I wouldn't have done all these new test sites. I wouldn't have sent, you know, more PPE to the nursing homes. So we continue to act and continue to prepare for the virus to resurge.
Do you think that you could have done more in terms of communicating the idea that everyone in Florida should be wearing a mask? I don't want to have to mandate it, but everyone must start wearing masks.
Well, we have communicated. I mean, when I put it out there when we first added it to our guidelines, no one was talking about it at the time. It was almost like, I don't even know if it made any news because it wasn't political yet. And so we do want everyone to do that, particularly in close contact. But I also think it's important to just be honest with people. You know, the mask, there's a lot of disagreement in the scientific literature about how much protection that gives you. So I just don't want people to think that you do the mask to the exclusion of all the other stuff.
Jim DeFede, right now, something at the top of a lot of people's mind is the $600 in unemployment that they might see disappear in the coming days and weeks as there is still no agreement on Capitol Hill regarding more help for the unemployed. You were able to touch on that with Governor DeSantis. What did he say about more help on the way for them?
Well, he's counting on the federal government. In part, he's got to help that the federal government comes through because Florida is dismal on this. Florida only pays at most $275 a week. It has arguably the worst unemployment support for people in any state in the country. So at $275, you cannot survive, even if you're lucky enough to get the $275. So he's counting on the federal government to come in. But, you know, one of the questions I asked him was, shouldn't he try to take steps to improve what the state is providing to people, to raise that $275? He says he's open to it, but he's counting on Congress. And Lauren, I do want to go back to one thing. I thought it was remarkable for the governor to sort of, again, be questioning the effectiveness, the efficacy of masks. I know he's saying he doesn't want people to rely on them, but one of the major criticisms of him is that he has not done enough to promote the wearing of masks. He refuses to do a statewide mandate, saying that he does not want to get into a situation where police have to enforce it, but there's a moral authority here that he could be exerting that he continues to avoid. So we're going to be following more. We'll have more of this interview tomorrow as well.
Jim, before you go, he was even questioning whether masks are really effective when the scientific community is pretty much in agreement that they do help to control the spread of the virus.
Yeah, so I mean, the notion of undermining the wearing of masks, the comment that he made, which we'll get into more tomorrow, but the comment that he made about 12 weeks of dead virus, these are things that are challenging to the scientific community that are not going in the positive direction that some of the scientists feel. And so, you know, Governor DeSantis is trying to absorb all the information, but it's, you know, sometimes the way he repeats it to folks doesn't really come across very well, and he is, again, trying to paint a rosier picture than I think is justified given the circumstances on the ground here in Florida.
All right, Jim, and of course here in South Florida, we are seeing some of that mask mandate enforcement by law enforcement. Again, you spoke to the governor for more than an hour. You'll have more of that. We will see you at 7 o'clock.
Jim, thank you.